So we're going to factor sine theta and sine theta. Oh, yeah, copied the problem wrong. So we have 2 sine theta, and then we have 2 and 1 as our factors here. Now you certainly hope it's factorable, because if it's not factorable, you have to use the quadratic formula, and I don't think we really want to go there, because I want these to work out to be either 30, 60, or 45 as a reference angle, so they're going to be factorable. And I need both of these signs to be negative, so I have a negative 4 sine x on the outside, a negative sine x in the middle gives you a negative 5 sine x as your middle term. Negative times negative is positive. Now when I set the first factor equal to 0, I have the sine of theta is equal to 1/2. And we know that that's 30 degrees or pi over 6. That would be the first quadrant, and sine is also positive in the second quadrant. So 6 pi over 6 minus pi over 6 is 5 pi over 6, and that takes care of that part of it. Then we look at sine theta equals 2. Well, the sine graph has a maximum value of 1 and a minimum value of negative 1. There is no value of theta such that you get the sine of theta equal to 2. There is no solution to that factor in this quadratic. So on the right-hand side, I can then write this as 1 plus cosine x perhaps, so that you are using FOIL. The first terms gives you 1. The inside, outside, cosine x plus cosine x is 2 cosine x. And the last product of the last terms is cosine squared x. So now if you're looking, should I make a substitution in place of sine squared for cosine squared or cosine squared for sine squared? Since I have 2 cosine x, I'm going to make a substitution of 1 minus cosine squared for sine squared. Distributive property, 3 minus 3 cosine squared x equals 1 plus 2 cosine x plus cosine squared x. I'm going to add 3 cosine squared to each side, and I'm going to subtract 3 from each side and set this equal to 0. So when I add 3 cosine squared plus cosine squared, I get 4 cosine squared. I still have plus 2 cosine x in the middle, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Now I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor here of 2. 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x minus 1 equals 0. 2 is a factor. I'm continuing to bring it down, but now I'm going to factor this trinomial into the product of 2 binomials. 2 cosine x, and 1 and 1. I want it to be a positive, positive cosine in the middle, so I'm making the furthest 1 positive and the one in the first parenthesis negative. And now I don't set 2 equal to 0, but I set 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0 and cosine x plus 1 equals 0. Cosine x equals 1/2 is the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant. And cosine x equals negative 1 is one value. All right. The cosine graph looks like this. And where the cosine is equal to -1 is pi. Let's take the cosine equal to 1/2. In the first, it's 60 degrees, which is pi over 3 in the first quadrant, and 6 pi over 3 minus pi over 3 is 5 pi over 3 in the fourth quadrant.